Today we're talking more about starting a fall garden. In most climates, starting right now, you can get another round of crops in before the winter comes. This is the second video in the series, so if you didn't see last Sunday's video, I suggest you watch that first. I'll put a link to it right up here and down in the video description. Today's video is about planting the seeds and preparing the ground. Coming up. Okay, did you do your homework from last week? If you did, pass it in and you get a gold star. The homework was to find out your first frost date, to visit a seed catalog website, and then using your first frost date, find out what crops you could grow and figure out what you wanted to grow. And if you ordered your seeds already, you get a bonus. Now let me know in the comments below your approximate location and your first frost date that you found out last week. That will help me gear future videos to the climates we have here on board. So I'd really appreciate that. And also let me know what you're going to be growing this fall. Now in yesterday's video, I stressed the importance of taking the garden you have now, figuring out its strengths and weaknesses, and drawing up a plan for next year's garden. Because right now, it's all fresh, you see what's working, what's not, and it's real quick to put that down on paper so you don't even have to think about it until next year when it's planting time. Well, I did that in March of this year for my cool season garden. Figured out what was working and what wasn't, and came up with the plan. So I'm going to show you that plan. And I'm glad I did not wait till now to draw this plan out, because things would have been really different. I did forget some things that I really wanted to make sure happened at this time of year. So I'm simplifying things this year and growing more of what we actually use and less of what we don't. Actually, none of what we don't. So we'll start over in the two small beds where I have my tomatoes right now. And I'm going to have 2 rows of peas growing there on cattle panels. And in the bed in front of that, I'm going to have red onions, brown onions, and garlic. And then over in the 3 bigger beds, I'm going to have a full bed of cauliflower, a full bed of broccoli, and then a full bed of cabbage. And the spacing there will be 18 inches apart. I said in yesterday's video that I might overwinter the peppers in the bed they're in. Well, that's before I remembered and saw this plan. I need this bed for cabbages. So instead of overwintering the peppers in that bed, I'm going to just dig them all up, overwinter them just like I'm going to show all you how to do, and plant them back in there in the late spring. And I will be doing a video on that very soon, because I know there's a lot of you out there that cool weather's coming a lot quicker than it is here. And even though it isn't nearly time for me to start that process here in this climate, I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice one of my peppers for you to do that video. Aww. I know. Now, if you live in a mild winter climate like I do, maybe somewhere in the South in the United States, you probably have some time, like I mentioned last week, to stick in another round of warm season vegetables. And I still have several months until our first frost, if we get one, but several months still until cold weather. That's going to slow the warm season plants down, even if there is no frost. And so today, earlier, I planted some bush beans. I had a spot that was available. And then I also planted some more yellow squash, because I don't feel like I have enough of that for use now, and then for storing, for freezing for the winter. And I had some extra room in the squash bed because there was one squash that I had not tied up in a while to keep it vertical, and it was kind of leaning way over, and when I went to pull it up to tie it off, it snapped the top off. So I pulled that out, and in went some new seeds for some yellow squash. Now, if your frost date is 2 to 3 months away, you want to start planting right now, both in the garden and starting seeds indoors, in case your weather is a little bit warm. Now, those of you in milder climates like me, it's time to start planting seeds of things that are okay being planted ahead of time indoors and then planted as transplants into the garden later. Let me explain. There are certain seeds that are just fine to plant early in advance and not directly into the garden, but indoors maybe so you have your own transplants to plant in when it's time. Some of those would be the brassicas like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kohlrabi, things like that you can plant as seeds right now in little pots, 6-packs, peat pellets, and then grow them a little bit until the weather outside is cool enough for them to really thrive, and then plant them out. Now the brassicas can actually germinate with a higher temperature than most of the cool season vegetables. Most of your cool season vegetables want the weather to be below 75 degrees. But brassicas can germinate with 75 degrees and even 80 degrees. And I looked ahead at our 10-day forecast and it's showing weather between 75 and 80 degrees. We've had a really cool summer so far. And so I'm going to be able to start my brassicas outdoors and then make my own transplants, and then maybe September, October, the weather will be really cooled off and I can start planting them into the ground. If it were warmer weather, I would still start my seeds right now, but I would start them indoors where it's cooler. Basically what I'm saying is, wherever you are, get the brassica seeds started now, indoors or out. Now in colder climates, you're probably getting to the point right now where temperatures are below 75, where you can just plant whatever you want directly into the garden right now. And seeds that really should be planted directly where you're going to grow them are peas, beets, carrots, lettuces can go either way. You can make transplants and start them and send them outside when it's cooler, or you can plant them right where you want them to grow. But for me, here in a warmer climate, it's too early to start those directly into the soil, so I will start them directly into the soil at the end of September, beginning of October, and then here our winters are mild, so they grow right through the winter and into early spring. Okay, let's get some seeds started. And if you're watching this in a climate that maybe you've already passed your window and it's too late for you to start a fall garden, that's okay, because this information will be good for you in maybe February to March, in early spring, late winter, to get things started indoors. The very same crops we're growing here, get a head start on them in late winter, early spring, so they can be planted out and then give you a harvest in the springtime. Then you want to find out your last frost date. You can do it the same as the first frost date, but your last frost date will tell you when it's safe to put out your spring planting. And then you count back 6 to 8 weeks from that date, and that's when you can start them indoors. We have a whole video on that, and I will link that down below as well. So there are many different ways for you to start seeds. I'm actually using these modules this year. They're very small, and it's going to be perfect for the things that I'm growing early, because I need a lot of them, and I'll be able to pot these up into a larger container if it's not time yet to put them out in the garden. They might be able to go directly from here into the garden. We'll see. But you can use, recycled cups, recycled 6-pack garden center containers, pots, peat pellets, whatever you want to use. Just follow the instructions on your seed packet for planting depth, spacing, and location. I'm not going to spend a ton of time planting these seeds. We've done videos on that. I will link that down below. In fact, it's the one I just mentioned. So you can go take a look at that if you want something a little more in depth. So we'll just plant a few here, and then we're going to go out in the garden and see how to prepare your soil in the garden for fall planting, and whether you're planting seeds or transplants. Now, no matter what you're planting in, make sure that the medium is pre-moistened. I'm just using potting soil in these little modules, and I've already got it soaked in water, so they are ready to go. Like I said, I'm using potting soil. You don't want to use garden soil. That's just too heavy for small containers, and to get seeds started, they want something very light. You technically don't want to use most, unless yours is really great, homemade compost, because there's a lot of bacteria and fungi in there that might cause damping off for the seeds. If you've done it before successfully, great. I don't recommend it, however, especially for beginners. So today I'm planting some vegetables and some flowers for the pollinators. Now, the flowers would only be for warm season gardens. I don't believe you're going to have much time to get the flowers growing and blooming before your frost. So if you've only got 2 to 3 months, skip the flowers, plant those in the springtime. But for me today, I'm going to be planting 2 different kinds of broccoli, purple sprouting and Waltham 29. I'm going to be planting some cauliflower. The variety is Snowball. And then 2 varieties of cabbage. Golden Acre, there's no picture, and Calabos, which I grew last year. It was a pointy red cabbage, delicious and actually really interesting looking. The seeds that I'm planting for pollinators, well, this is for pollinators and for me, but some chamomile, snapdragon, and calendula. So I'm going to plant 2 rows of each variety. And I'm going to start out with the cauliflower. And like I always do, I'm going to put, and these are very small seeds, but I'm going to try to put about 2 seeds in each cell. Looks like I'm getting 3 in there, but I can thin them out if needed. And the reason I put 2 is for insurance. You never know the germination rate, and you just want to have some backup just in case. And then you can thin out any extras that come up. And you want to remember to label so you don't forget what you planted. So I'm going to do 2 rows, skip a row, and then do 2 rows. So I'm going to cover these with about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of potting soil, except for the chamomile and snapdragons. Those stay on the surface. And I'm going to keep these in a shady spot until they come up, always making sure that they're moist, especially in small little modules like this. They dry out pretty quickly. So there is a little bit of water in the bottom of this tray to keep them moist. And then especially when we move them into more sun, you want to keep an eye on the moisture there as well. Let's head out to the garden and I'll show you how to get ready for fall planting. Twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, I put 2 to 3 inches of mulch on all of my garden beds. Now for mulch, you can use a bunch of different things. You can use any kind of organic matter that is going to break down. And I would say for this purpose, you want something that is small and is pretty broken down when you start, because we're going to be planting directly into it. And so wood chips would be a little bit big. What I use is actually just a 50-50 mix of homemade compost and bagged organic raised bed mix. I use Kellogg's raised bed mix. It's organic, and I mix that with my compost, and that creates a really nice medium to be able to put down a layer and plant directly into. So what that does is that adds a whole bunch of new fresh nutrients to your garden beds. It also introduces a lot of the beneficial bacteria that we need to do all the things that are beneficial for your plants. What it also does is it creates a physical barrier between the current soil that was out to the elements all summer and your new plant's leaves. So during the summer, all of the pests and the diseases and the bacteria that was in the soil and on your plants, and you may have seen it show up on your leaves as blight or mildew or any of those things, that's all laying on top of the summer soil. And so when you water your new plants, your cool season plants, and that gets splashed up from the soil, what do you think it's going to do? It's going to start that disease process all over again on your new plants. So 2 to 3 inches of this stuff creates a physical barrier so that when the water splashes up, even though we're going to try to water from below, right? If the water splashes up, it's not going to harm your plants. Another great thing about 2 to 3 inches of plantable mulch is that when you pull up your summer plants, now I do no dig, so you want to disturb the soil as little as possible. And if you just kind of pull up your plants, you get a big root ball, a lot of soil, and it disrupts all the microbes that are going on underneath. So if you can twist your plants out, you're going to get a much smaller root ball. That leaves a lot of the roots still underneath the soil. And what they're going to do is they're going to break down over the next couple of months and feed the soil. However, we don't want to plant directly into those roots because they're not broken down yet. Well, this 2 to 3 inches is going to be just enough for your roots to kind of develop while that other root system of the old plants is breaking down. Now, I'm not going to be planting any cool season crops directly into my soil today. It's way too warm for that still. I've still got another couple of months. But I have done videos for all the cool season things that you want to grow. The carrots, the beets, the radishes, peas. I'm going to link all those below so you can go watch them now, because if it's your time, you need the instruction. So take a look at those videos. They're all going to be down below in the video description, and make sure that you comment and let me know where you are, what your first frost date is, and what you're planning to grow this fall. If you got something out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell icon, and I will see you guys next time.